Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to a News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. I'm Joseph Lopez. Let's take a look at the headlines. The highly anticipated 8th America's Competitiveness Forum opens its doors for one day of the three-day summit. The Ministry of Tertiary Education and Skills Training signs a Memorandum of Understanding with the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center for OJT Finance. And the Geriatric Adolescent Partnership Program is being described as a people-centered program as participants graduate following completion of Level 2. Thank you so much for joining us. Top of the news. Wednesday marked the start of the 8th America's Competitiveness Forum in Trinidad and Tobago, with the first of numerous panel discussions kicking off at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. At the end of the 8th ACF, attendees are expected to change the conversation on innovation and competitiveness in the Americas, with a view to providing feasible and implementable strategy options for policymakers and business executives. News 4 attended day one of the forum, which set the tone for days ahead.
The 8th America's Competitiveness Forum kicked off on Wednesday with a bang, as the conference rooms and ballrooms of the Hyatt Regency Trinidad were filled to capacity. Local, regional, and extra-regional heads of state, cabinet members, business executives, trade delegates, academics, and representatives of the private sector and international non-governmental agencies came out in their numbers to be a part of one of the hemisphere's largest public-private policy dialogue and business events. Trinidad and Tobago is the first English-speaking Caribbean country to host the America's Competitiveness Forum, and this year's theme for the three-day event is the human imagination at work, driving competitiveness, powering innovation.
A business is a thriving organism, not limited by the walls which house an organization. At first, this may seem burdensome to some of us to take in. But such an approach really represents an integrated partnership or ecosystem for business growth and success, and a formidable strengthening of the chain of value beyond conventional notions of product and service, which one assumes will be optimum in a truly competitive business. In such a stakeholder approach, the flow of information is constant and invigorating, and supportive of responsiveness and agility, adaptability, change, and innovation, stimulation of the human imagination, human creativity, and solution finding. The constant flow of information into an organization and human interaction among people with different perspectives affects the human spirit and the flow of energy, which are absolutely vital for creativity and innovation.
Several speakers delivered presentations on taking a different approach to developing sustainable businesses and services. There were several exhibitors at the forum sharing their products and services with potential clients, including Compete Caribbean.
Compete Caribbean is a private sector development technical assistance program that works in the CARIFORUM region, and it provides technical assistance to governments and to private sector firms to become more competitive. So competitiveness is our motto. This is the America's Competitiveness Forum. Every year we bring a contingent of Caribbean competitiveness authorities, chambers of commerce, and so on to wherever the forum is held across the Americas. And we also organize a meeting of Caribbean competitiveness authorities where we present topics that are of interest for competitiveness in the region. This year, because the forum is in Trinidad and it's the first time that's in an English-speaking Caribbean country, we were, of course, very, very interested in supporting the whole process. And so we worked very closely with the Trinidadian government.
In attendance, there was even representation by the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce.
Thus far, it has been very, very exciting. I think we started off with the minister, hearing from the minister, and he put a new face to the whole thing, which is human imagination, and getting us to think what else can be different, what can be done different. And then from there, Professor Gabo, he just opened up our minds to lots of things. I think one of the great takeaways that he has said, it's not just about money. We all think if we don't have money, we don't have an answer. It's about finding a new strategy. And I think that's very relevant because in Trinidad and Tobago, we try to push entrepreneurship. We always say one of the biggest challenges is the ability to finance your business and to get financing because the banks are are more reluctant in giving financing to risky business. But, he talked about going to your other stakeholders and see if there could be some mutual value that you could bring to them and they in return can give you something. So maybe you can get credit from your supplier. All right? So it's about, instead of always finding the reasons why we can't do something, let's go out and seek the reasons how we can make this possible.
The forum at the Hyatt Regency will continue until Friday, and other sub-events are expected to take place concurrently, providing opportunities for networking and the sharing of experiences. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
The University of the West Indies is continuing with its open lecture series. This time, the Secretary General of the Organization of American States delivered the featured address as the university sought to explore the challenges facing Latin America and the Caribbean.
His Excellency Jose Miguel Insulza's open lecture was titled Latin America and the Caribbean, Good News with Many Challenges. According to the OAS, there's been a high economic growth within the region, which has allowed for more favorable conditions to reduce poverty and increase the prospects for a better life for many of the region's inhabitants. However, with this good economic news, still come challenges in the region, such as the fight against drugs. The OAS Secretary General says it is some of these challenges that must also be considered when attempting to determine a country's development status. Addressing Trinidad and Tobago's recent classification as a developed nation, Mr. Insulza says he believes the nation is actually still a developing country and says the citizens shouldn't be ashamed to say so.
I have an issue with the classification between underdevelopment and development, and I'll just say that I don't think that underdevelopment is a previous stage to development. It's another form of development which is not acceptable for us. So I prefer to say that in most of our region is formed by developing countries which have chosen a path to development that's reasonable and possible. But to achieve success, I certainly feel that we have to have more consensus about what the goals are and what the steps are that we have to take in each stage. So yes, Trinidad and Tobago is a developing country. That's a good word. That's a good word to say about it.
Speaking at the lecture, Minister of Foreign Affairs Winston Dukaran, whose ministry worked with UWI on the lecture series, commends the OAS on re-establishing its political legitimacy in the region. He says one way this is being done is by the organization tackling the challenges faced by its 35 member states.
We have increased and intensified our effort in the Organization of American States by supporting the new initiatives that they have put on the table with respect to the hemispheric regulation and control of the drug situation facing the world. I myself had the very distinct privilege within the last year or so to attend this important international forum, which was under the chairmanship of a very distinguished speaker here today. We have therefore come at a time when the Organization of American States, having reestablished its political legitimacy in the hemisphere, is currently embarking on even new dimensions. Over the last 10 years, it has been a period of consolidation and growth. It has been a period of sincere diplomacy. It has been a period of astute leadership.
Minister Dukaran says the OAS is charting a new course for Trinidad and Tobago and the entire hemisphere by encouraging a rethinking in key areas such as diplomacy and national development.
This lecture has come at a time when there is a rethinking of several aspects of development, diplomacy, and indeed the issues of foreign relations. Today is but one additional example of an opportunity where we will search for those new thinking. The world is at a point that the demand for new thinking has emerged as perhaps the most significant aspect of public leadership in today's world. We too in the Caribbean have been engaged in our deep search in difficult and troubled times. And we have embarked on an exercise to look at ways and means in which we can exploit the place for economies of scale to grow and the economics of space to enlarge.
As part of his official visit to Trinidad and Tobago, His Excellency Jose Miguel Insulza will also be participating in the 8th Americas Competitiveness Forum. The forum will be held from the period October 8th to 10th, 2014. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
We'll take a break. You're with News 4. Welcome back and thank you so much for joining us. The Ministry of Tertiary Education and Skills Training launched yet another initiative of the On-the-Job Training Program, this time OJT Finance. Line Minister for the program, Senator Fazal Karim, signed the Memorandum of Understanding with the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center. At the Ministry of Tertiary Education and Skills Training headquarters at the International Waterfront Center, Port of Spain. The launch was part of the ministry's plan to restructure the on-the-job training OJT program so that trainees would not only find a more purposeful fit but also meet the requirements of the labor market. The minister said, open quote, "There is no doubt in my mind that we are at the center, we are the pivot, and also the pinnacle for financial services in the Caribbean, and therefore my cabinet colleagues and I are keen on satisfying the middle and back operations services of financial institutions." End quote. The minister asserted the need for the OJT program to focus on different industries to safeguard against the mismatch of skills and ultimately the misalignment of taxpayers' investment in education and training, particularly that of the Government Assistance for Tuition Expenses, GATE, which has spent $4.5 billion on students since its inception in 2004. The minister went on to say that today is a critical day in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, since we have never had this type of collaboration before. He said, "Do not be surprised if OJT of today soon becomes an employee of our organizations." This, News 4 understands, is all part of creating the welfare and happiness of all our citizens so that they may access a better quality of life. We'll take a break. You're with News 4. Thank you so much for staying with us. Going house to house and finding the people who need help to improve their living standards and rise above persisting levels of poverty. Now, this was the goal identified by the Ministry of Tobago Development for two initiatives that were recently launched, the Women for Women program and the People Helping People program for men. Natoya Johnson has more in this report.
Come 2016, there will be a pool of reliably trained tradesmen and skilled economically independent women after the People Helping People and Women for Women programs complete their first cycle. Program manager of the Women for Women program, Annette Alfred, explains that the two-year project is part of the ministry's Human Capital Development Initiative called HOPE, which stands for Helping Our People Elevate.
200 have been selected, and I repeat, 200 have been selected, while about 30 remain on the reserved list should vacancies arise during the first 3 months. The Women for Women program offers great opportunities for our women to engage themselves in learning skills which will help them to become economically self-sufficient, employable and independent.
Minister in the Ministry of the People, Vanilla Allen Chopin, was present and placed the support of her office behind the initiatives.
Now, the office in Canby, upstairs Tobago Water, is where you can go if you need food cards, if you need house repairs, if you need to access the baby grant, whatever you need from the Ministry of the People. If you have a child with cerebral palsy, we give you a stipend to stay at home and take care of the child. If you have a child with a disability, we give you that. Whatever the situation is, the Ministry of the People and Social Development will help.
These poverty reduction programs by the Ministry of Tobago Development go deeper than the initial need to provide for single mothers. They also provide for the young men in society and their families, according to the coordinator of the Liaison Unit, Beverly Ramsey Moore.
And so while there is a Women for Women program, we are now talking about people helping people, which is a program that was designed to take care of our unemployed young men, our disadvantaged young men, so that they too can have a skill, they too can become empowered, they too now will enjoy a higher standard of living.
Ramsey Moore hinted that by pairing these programs under a single ministry, the participants may find some added benefits.
Imagine, we are empowering the women and we are training the young men. So when money meet money, when we match, you see what's going to happen? We're going to turn Tobago around, and for sure, everything will be all right.
The criteria for those participating in the People Helping People program requires that participants must already be employed or have a total household income of $6,000 or less. They may also be victims of fire or flood, old age pensioners, socially displaced persons, and they must be a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Reporting from Tobago, Natoya Johnson, News 4.
More news when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are on to some sport news now. The first one-day international of the West Indies tour to India was contested today in Kochi, with the regional side coming off 2 successive defeats versus India A. All were very eager to see their performance against the big team. Now here's Wayne Cunningham with the results.
India won the toss and asked the visitors to take first strike as Game 1 of the 5-game one-day international series bowled off at the Nehru Stadium in Kochi. West Indies captain Dwayne Bravo inserted himself at the top of the order, but was first out in the 8th over for 17. 10 overs later, his opening partner, Dwayne Smith, fell for 46. Darren Bravo was looking solid before he lost his head, going for consecutive big hits of Amit Reshra and was caught by Shikhar Dhawan on the boundary for 28. That brought Dinesh Ramdin to the wicket to join Marlon Samuels, and that pair got the Windies back into the contest with some fine stroke play.
That was the slow ball that disappeared over point from Mohammad Shami.
They put on 165 runs in a 4th-wicket stand, of which the informed Ramdin contributed 61. But it was Samuels whose measured innings brought the West Indies total to a competitive score.
Not a stick, but it certainly is looking a master stroke. As good a stroke as this.
He registered his 6th one-day international 100, which came off 99 balls with 8 fours and 3 sixes.
Wonderful knock from Marlon Samuels. His 2nd 100 against India and 6th overall in one-day international cricket on his return to the West Indies team.
Although West Indies lost a bit of momentum due to quick wickets, Samuels carried on with deft precision and aggression to finish unbeaten on 126.
Knocked him over comprehensively. Down the ground and gone for 6. Magnificently struck by
Darren Sammy was the other not-out batsman on 10, as the West Indies closed with 321 for 6 in the allotted 50 overs. Mohammad Shami was India's best bowler, taking 4 for 66. The host's reply looked ominous, with Ajinkya Rahane and Dhawan punishing some poor bowling. But in the ninth over, with 49 on the board, things started to change. First to go was Rehane, run out when he and his partner ended up liming at the same end of the pitch.
He'll have to carry on walking. That's what he does.
The bowling got tighter and the wickets came. Next to go was Virat Kohli, caught by Sami and bowled by the returning Taylor.
Jerome Taylor striking, and it concerns me. And there again, this is probably a little bit shorter in length. That made him a little bit uncertain whether to come forward or back. But because he was...
The score moved from 2 for 55 to 4 for 84 in 7 overs as the Windies got stingy while taking wickets, which included the dangerous Suresh Raina.
That's something batsmen don't want to hear when the ball passes them. That rattle of the ball hitting the stumps.
When Sami accounted for the equally dangerous Indian captain MS Dhoni, Dwayne Bravo and his men were in total control of the match, with a score on 114 for 5 in the 26th over.
Raina was one, and that's another.
There was no recovery as the West Indies kept up the pressure and continued to send men back to the dressing room to end the Indian innings on 197 all out in 40 overs. Samuel had the best bowling figures with 2 for 10. Dwayne Bravo and Ravi Rampal also had 2 wickets each.
Things getting from bad to worse, playing for the turning ball, holding the line, and brilliant catch again from Darren Sammy. It may seem easy.
Well, it's hit the stumps as well, but the bails haven't come off, so that's how...
The West Indies taking the first one-day international by 124 runs. Marlon Samuels for his fine century and bowling was an easy choice for the man of the match. The second one-day international will be in Delhi on Saturday. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
Thank you, Wayne. We'll take a break. Keep it here. Welcome back. High praises are being heaped on the Geriatric Adolescent Partnership Program as participants completed the Level 2 cycle. The praises come from Community Development Minister Winston Gypsy Peters as he commended the graduates for taking part in what he calls a people-centered program, which is geared towards our country's golden generation. Also, the minister is urging participants to take their skills at a higher level. There is a world of opportunities open to the more than 100 Geriatric Adolescent Partnership Program GAP participants who have completed Level 2. So says Minister of Community Development Winston Gypsy Peters. The program, he underscored, is the Ministry of Community Development's most sought-after programs that they have enrolled in. The minister said GAP is meant to equip young people with caregiving and self-development skills to serve the elderly in our society. He sought to replace the word elderly and used the words yesterday's children based on one of his compositions of the same name. It goes like this. With trembling feet and with a stick she walked. Her blurred eyes gazed upon the land she slaved for. She feels the pains of yesterday. They build boats and planes and highways. With so many lanes, they are yesterday's children. So we have to be careful with what we do. For when tomorrow comes, if we are lucky, we may become yesterday's children too. After sharing this verse from his composition, Minister Peters saluted the participants for taking part in what he says is a people-centered program which is geared towards our country's golden generation. Minister Peters went on to say, we must be ever mindful that our elders are the holders of history, the keepers of knowledge and the foundation of wisdom to teach us how to prevail in the face of difficulties. The field of geriatric care is one that is consistently growing, and the skills offered are indeed in great demand. In Trinidad and Tobago alone, we have over 156,000 persons over the age of 60. It is estimated that the population of this age group is likely to double over the next 50 years. The minister made a call for those gathered to make a pledge for the year 2015 so as to find a career or course of study that is linked to this program. Some of the graduates of the program have already found their calling as caregivers to the elderly in our society. This as many of them continue to pursue a route that GAP has inspired. The Geriatric Adolescent Partnership Program, GAP, is an intensive short-term integrational training program which imparts knowledge and skills in elder care to young persons between the ages of 17 to 25. GAP's mission is to sensitize young men and women to the aging process and prepare them through training and field visits to develop practical skills and values towards professional approach to work. A stipend of $60 for each day attended is provided to assist trainees to successfully complete the program. And that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. Remember, you can view a repeat of our newscast weekdays at 6 a.m. and feel free to visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/OurTV4. Also, be sure to visit our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/the GISL TD. I'm Joseph Lopez. Thank you for joining us.